Let's jump into this.
The month is October. We are well into fall and quickly approaching Halloween, and for many of us, that means it's time to rewatch the delightful and outstanding piece of animation known as Over the Garden Wall. In this video, I'll be discussing just one aspect of the show that I appreciated and found really interesting, and that is the tragic circumstances surrounding the character of the Woodsman.
I'm excited to see what he's about to get into. I liked the Woodsman character a lot. Is that Doc Brown, by the way?
Well, welcome to the unknown, boys.
You're gonna see some serious shit.
It is. It's Christopher Lloyd. Brilliant. His character is very tragic, and it has a lot to do with what happens when you become obsessed with your fear. He lost his daughter, and now you have the beast. You have fear saying this is how you keep your daughter alive. You have to keep destroying the forest, cutting it down, and turning it into oil. The Woodsman representing very much, this capitalist instinct, this thing where it says to keep what you have alive, you have to just keep working, and you have to keep working and working and working. That's the only way to keep this alive. It's tricking you that you're actually keeping your daughter alive. You're able to keep this alive. You're able to keep that spirit alive in you, the joy of what your daughter brought to you. You can keep that alive in you if you keep working, but really what it's actually feeding is your fear. You're not growing your lively spirit. You're growing your spirit of fear, and you're becoming more fearful and more oppressed under your own attitude. And you become, your relationships start to die out. The way you treat everything starts to become very similar to that. It starts to literally infest you in the way that energy does. And the same way that everything does, that reality works when something comes around you and it feasts upon you in the way that rashes come upon you and sicknesses come upon you. And there are ways to cure them, and it's the way you cure spirituality is with time and energy, in the same way that you do with everything else, is focusing on a certain type of energy, focusing on a certain type of vibe in the right amount of time. And the Woodsman shows that, shows an understanding once he's able to grab an understanding of what he needs, and the way that his daughter comes back. I don't know what that means exactly about his daughter coming back, but poetically, you can see what that means about his happiness. You can see what that means about what he feels he's supposed to do as a person, what he does with his time and in his energy, and what his purpose is, and what fuels his happiness, his being, his source.
Unlike the many adventures of Wirt and Greg, where they managed to figure out the truth and managed to turn the unknown into the known, the Woodsman remained in the dark until Wirt and Greg helped him see the light. See the light in the lantern for what it really was.
Let's get into real quick the storytelling. The framing of the story is really well done. How they're just in the woods. It opens and they're just there. It's weird and wacky, and they meet animals. And then you start to realize that they're in a modern day because they're wearing costumes, and you think that they're just weird and wacky like everyone else. But then the way they start talking, you're like, oh, they're more normal than we thought. Okay, maybe we're more modern than we really assumed. The way that they do the classic, or jump right in the middle of the story, and then we'll give you backstory on the episode before the last, the episode before the finale is where you get all the backstory. A classic TV show trope that you don't see often in a Cartoon Network type show, a miniseries like that. The story guides you to a certain thought and then lets you enjoy the exposition, knowing the characters more. Introduces you to interesting ideas at that specific time. It's exciting when such obscure art on a platform like Cartoon Network do that kind of shit. I love when kids get really good art like Avatar or Marvel, where they get really good art, or Courage, Coraline, these things that speak to deep-seated evil and how we deal with that as regular people, and how it's okay. And even though it's really creepy and scary, it's cool, it's fun, it's funny, it's silly, it's wacky, and that's a great time. I love it. I love it. The way that they reveal information to you, incredibly done. I mean, it's voiced by Elijah Wood, so they wanted to get some top-tier actors. Christopher Lloyd, I mean, shit. They were like, we got something here, and we need to get the right people for it. It almost reminds me of Invincible, the way that Invincible is just top-tier storytelling and a great cartoon, and they got top-tier voice actors.
The Woodsman chose a path of living away from people, from everybody. He stayed at Beatrice's family's mill only after finding out it was completely abandoned.
I found this homestead abandoned, repurposed its mill for my needs.
And the only reason we saw him near the tavern was because he had to cut down that Edelwood tree that happened to be there. Ideally, the Woodsman did not want to come across any other individuals. However, his decision to cut himself off from others also resulted in cutting himself off from the possibility of learning about the unknown from other people, swapping stories and gaining knowledge from the experience of others.
He's terrified. And that's where he also gets lost in warning people. He's so paranoid. And he's right, but he's so paranoid that he's focused on warning. He's focused on the fear rather than just living.
This is a truly tragic result because many of the inhabitants within and around the woods seem quite familiar with the beast.
Yep.
We all know the beast, Pilgrim.
Or at the very least have heard of it.
The beast is upon me!
The inhabitants and travelers staying at the tavern all fear the beast and have quite a plethora of information that they express in song, information that happens to be correct. If you get lost, the beast will lie and do all it's capable of to keep you astray until it's able to, well, I'll just let you.
Yeah, it goes back to, like we were saying, the Christian ideal of the devil, of pure evil, the liar, the angel of deceit. I think it goes to what the Christians and what the Bible tries to label, and every religion tries to label, that spirit of fear, of the deception. Satan in Hebrew meaning the rebel, in a realm where love is king, and in a spiritual realm where all ideas are conscious, and what idea reigns over all ideas, and what creates life being the idea of love, of warm connection, and no time exists. And when no time exists and everything is one, a rebellion means opposite of love, meaning that evil, that lie, that hate. So in that Christian ideal, the Satan, the rebel, meaning that hate, that fear itself. It feels like they leave this suburban life and to go into this rural fantasy land, which sometimes it feels like leaving the suburban urban life and going into these small towns that are very odd, a little racist, a little traditionalist. You start to see Trump signs and they all talk about being chased by the devil. Watch out for the devil. I even go back to, and I do want to do a video on this one day on Everything Everywhere All at Once, the way that they call the evil one that's everywhere all the time, Jobu Tupaki, that they give it a name. And she says, Jobu Tupaki is taking over you. She's inside your soul. The way that they frame this devil character, it's very interesting that that's a part of art in that way, because it is very mysterious and very weird, because I think it's a weird thing to not understand and then to go there and everyone's like, you gotta watch out for the devil. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? What the hell are you saying? It dives into that unknown. If you have like a cop show or some type of weird TV show and they have that creepy episode, it involves like exorcisms or religion or something, and they end it with that mysterious music, the evil one, the religion, the like, you gotta trust God or the evil one will come after you, you're all going to hell. As weird and wacky and as stupid as that sounds, there's something mysterious about it. Kind of like, wait, what are they talking about? Why does it feel like they know something that I don't? There's something weird about that. I think there is something that they understand that we don't. Rather, they understand the lore that they've created about it rather than having a relationship and a knowing of the actual spirit itself. People in this story, as they go over the garden wall and into this other type of realm, into this other type of place, very traditionalist area, everyone knows of the beast. And they don't know the beast, but everyone's like, you better fucking watch out for the beast. You better watch out, he's coming for you. So it's very cool how they use that. They use that archetype.
The Tavern Keep may have presumed he was the beast and tried to kick him out with her broom skills, sure, but dialogue with others helps broaden perspectives, and I think any interactions would have aided the myopic woodsman.
And that goes into what they believe about the beast and how they are all very nice people, very kind people, but bigoted as shit and won't let the birds in because they are scared of what that might be the beast. Very similar to racial tension down there, of what they believe with a certain skin color and the way that they look, what spirit they contain, and the idea that spiritualism is the idea that inhabits you, and that spirit that inhabits a certain race of people is bad and dangerous and violent and just downright bigoted and evil and a terrible idea. To even think that is a judgment to be upon. That's what the beast is. The beast has encompassed them already. You can see it in those characters' eyes.
Is the woodsman's dilemma, the tragedy which unfolded from unfortunate...
has like the beast in it. Disney Plus has this thing right now when you go on there that you see like all the villains, like it's a Halloween special, and the thumbnails are all the villains like eyes, and I'm like, that's brilliant. And you can see like how Disney draws the certain sin, that evil represents, in the way that they draw them in their eyes. And that was really cool to see and try to like pick out what each one was. And I think that's very similar to these characters here, but in a more exaggerated and silly way, because this is very silly. It wants to be silly. It wants to have that good vibe while also having that poetry.
While the woodsman chose to live in isolation, he was still very much willing to help those in need if the scenario ever arose. And because he chose to help Wirt and Greg, circumstances played out such that they were able to help him overcome his own burden when everything was at its most dark. And in the end, that is the reason why I'm okay with the woodsman's daughter having returned home while he was away doing the beast's bidding. Because it emphasizes that to overcome the unknown, you have to be able to rely on others, not just on yourself. And
he kind of represents too that famous archetype of in horror movies of like the guy that comes up and warns everyone.
Course, I ain't never seen anyone go up that road. A group of campers went up there and got lost.
There's a certain wisdom to them, but there's also a certain paranoia that has them taken over that diminishes everything. Don't go over there type person. It's interesting that that archetype is a thing. I like how the way that Over the Garden Wall points it out in its cartoon manner.
Follow me over on Twitch. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Go follow him on Twitch, guys.